Hi, Mincho.
Hi.
Hi. Been a
How
while.
does the screen look like? Last time I made a mistake showing my slide notes. I was wondering whether everything is okay.
Looks to me it's good.
So
It's
you don't
a
see my slide notes, right? I
no.
have to read it. I haven't slept much last night.
Oh, yeah. I noticed. I was wondering. It was like in the morning in the
I
Eastern
know.
time, and you were emailing me.
It was
I was like, does
crazy.
this guy doesn't sleep?
I feel so foolish. I really regret not raising it that I don't like to start for the first presenter. Okay,
You
so this is the
sure?
title.
You made a wonderful slides so far
I
as it
don't know.
looks.
What did you see? You haven't seen anything.
It looks good.
Anyway, I
I
use a
mean,
lot of ChatGPT, so it's not me, actually. I'm just an avatar.
yeah, everybody does that these days. I notice students, they prepare their assignments and everything they submit it through ChatGPT. I actually use mine too.
DeepSeek.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't use that one. It stops a lot of
The
times.
Chinese ChatGPT is DeepSeek, isn't it?
Right, right. But I don't know why. Sometimes I notice the functionality wasn't very well integrated. It often stops. Sometimes it gives a lot more illusion than ChatGPT would.
Oh, well, who
Get a
knows?
get some coffee. Do you still drink
I
coffee?
drink
I
a
thought
lot
you.
of coffee.
Yeah, I'm getting my tea, so I will not fall asleep mid of the during the mid of the course.
Well, actually, I found a notice from Seoul National University. When I opened the homepage, I got this notice that don't use DeepSeek. Your personal information can be, I think this is all record. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, never use DeepSeek, but well, they also warned us about not using anything deployed on the cloud. They want us to deploy locally, but that is a lot
Oh, I
more.
see.
It's very challenging technologically, but I don't think anyone's following, not everyone's following that directive. How's life in Yale? What city is that called?
So, Yale is located in New Haven, but I'm living in like 30 minutes afar from that city because when I first trying to come here, I found that so I had no problem, but I found that I cannot bring my own daughter without a visa. I had no idea
Yeah.
about the process, so I really had to spread applications for some private schools,
Yeah, it
and
must be tough.
yeah, she got F1 visa. So it was kind of
I thought that
random.
gets better. Is it getting better as it since you were there for 2 years now?
Time flies. The time spent in here is almost equal like the time I spent in China now. So
Yeah, like I can't
mm,
imagine I've been here for 5 years now.
time
It's really,
flies.
really fast.
Oh,
And it
well,
was like
actually,
2 years ago
yeah,
since we met.
yeah. And my experience in China is really was actually very helpful. Most of my friends in here are WeChat
hmm
users.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Dr. Chu.
Hi, good
Is it
morning for
late or
US
early?
and good evening for China.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's 9 o'clock around in here. So there was a little time zone difference. I didn't notice between even us, between Thailand and Beijing time, there was 1 hour difference. So the actually the link when it was sent to you, it
Hello.
automatically adjusted to your local time. So it was 8. It was a little confusing, but then we figured out.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning for US and good evening for China.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening.
Yeah.
So
Hello,
as
good
far as
evening.
I know, it's Walailaka is in the southern Thailand, close to Malaysia.
Yes, yes. Is Valakinisti is Nakhon Si Thammarat province is a southern of Thailand and close to um um Kedah state.
Mm-hmm. Kedah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Heard about that one. That should be a province in Malaysia, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh, good, good. Hi, Fan Hao.
But can you hear me?
I can hear you. You look good. You look refreshed. Good
Oh,
morning.
really? It's yeah. Good morning. It's about 9 a.m. right now.
Okay. Shall we? It's about 9 p.m. Shall we start early, 3 minutes ahead of the time, or do we wait for 9 sharp? So the order, this is a not a very formal colloquium. We call that a colloquium, but the colloquium sounds very formal. And the original intention, the purpose was actually at the very beginning, I thought about inviting Dr. Nie over to our university to give a speech. But then I just realized I have many friends and colleagues doing research in the similar field. We all study mental health or health generally. We all have a um, at least a social concern, if not a sociological perspective. So I thought, why not just bring people together? We can share our ideas and what we are currently doing, and maybe there would be a possible potential outcome for collaboration, international collaboration on this topic. So um, I gathered the brightest minds across the entire world to this event, the best I can try. Uh, so
Yeah.
don't be too, don't feel too nervous. This is a I supposed to be a friendly, less formal talk, but we still want some very serious and formal issues to be discussed. So let me just open. This is recorded, right, Minchong? It's being recorded right now.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So let me just briefly give an open notes and then we move to our speech. The order I we talk about this. So Minchung would go first, then Dr. Ni, then Dr. Chu, and I will wrap up before we move to questions and discussion. So good morning and good evening to all who are joining us across different time zones. My name is Yusuf Yang. I have the privilege of welcoming you to our conversation. The topic is young people's mental health amid the currents. Um, Young people across the globe are entering adulthood amid stagnant wages, precarious employment, and algorithm-driven surveillance that intensify their stress and isolation. Unfortunately, the current political turmoil plaguing different nations, wars, and the potential risk of wars, the trending deglobalization associated economic recession have altogether put our generation to bear the burden of our debt-ridden fiscal environment, overloaded social control without the corresponding social provision, and the crumbling communal life we inherited from the past generations. So there had never been a more important time like ours to study the social organization and the distribution of stress, namely how young people survive mental health challenges amid all the counter currents that put them at a disadvantage. So first, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Fan Hao from the University of Massachusetts, Dr. Minchung Li from Yale School of Nursing, Dr. Nirachon Chupipatana, sorry if I messed up the name pronunciation, from Walaika University in Thailand. Thank you for lending your time and expertise to this conversation. We will begin with a very brief presentation of each speaker. So let me very briefly introduce our first speaker, Dr. Minchung Li. Dr. Ming-Chun Lee is currently a postdoctoral associate at the Yale School of Nursing, Yale University. She obtained her PhD in public health from Seoul National University. Her research interests include health risk communications, digital health disparities, and patient-centered care. She has broad international research experiences based in South Korea, China, and the United States. Her publications appeared in leading public health journals, such as the ones we all very familiar with, BMC Public Health, Health Communication, and Journal of Global Health. So I'm going to turn the floor over to our first speaker, Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee, the screen time is yours now.
All right. Hello everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Minjung Lee from Yale University. Today sorry, I don't know how to turn off the ding dongs sound when people are entering. I hope it doesn't bother too much. So today I'll talk about how health communication can support young adults in Korea as they face the challenges of aging well. So the title of my talk is, Are Young Adults Ready for Successful Aging? It sounds like a question that belongs to older generations, but in reality, I want to suggest that it's one we should be asking much earlier in life. So, in particular, I'll focus on the experience of young adults in Korea and also the role about health communication play for readiness of successful aging among the young adults amid the currents. Uh-oh. Before we ask whether young adults are ready for successful aging, we should first define what that even means. On the left, you can see the classic model of successful aging: physical, mental health, and social well being. Um, but this model is not just about capacity. It's about capacity, not just surviving. On the right, we see an alternative trajectory: accelerated aging, where the biological age begins to outpace chronological age. In Korea, despite a relatively young population, the experience of aging seems to be happening faster, and it sets the stage for my main question today. Are young adults in Korea on a path towards successful aging, or are they already showing signs of wearing out and accelerated aging? Um, in South Korea, sorry. Oh yeah, no. Just a moment. Sorry, I need to adjust this screen.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time.
Sorry.
Grab a coffee or whatever.
Yeah. Um, okay, I'm done. So in South Korea, young adults are not just unprepared for successful aging. Actually, many are struggling to maintain their basic physical and emotional health. Um, Actually, suicide remains the leading cause of death among Koreans under 40. And today I want to look at these challenges not as isolated individual issues, but as something that unfolds across layers. Um, Based on this framework, socio-ecological model. I'm not trying to theoretically explain about this model, but I thought that to understand how young adults are experiencing health risk and aging in Korea, I thought this framework helps us look at multiple layers of influence, from individual stress and health behavior to interpersonal relationships and institutions, and at the outer layer, structural influences like policies um, or maybe institutions. So let's walk through the lived realities of young Korean adults, one layer at a time. At the individual level, one of the clearest signs of vulnerability among young adults is lifestyle. So, according to American Heart Association, there are some kind of six factors which shape long-term health. Um, but across each of these areas, Koreans youth are struggling. For example, on the right side, you can see South Korea ranks first in alcohol consumption among Asian countries. I think some people might know about this very well. And young Korean adults also report shorter sleep durations, frequent consumption of ultra-processed foods, and lower levels of physical activities. In other words, despite knowing what a healthy lifestyle looks like, they're structurally actually set up to fail in maintaining it. And for individual challenges, I also want to mention about individual beliefs. In South Korea, one of the most pervasive belief system among youth is the gold spoon versus dirt spoon. I think that there's some similar concepts in both China and the US, like born on third base or the second generation wealth. Um, this internalized belief reduces motivation, increases burnout, and often leads to unhealthy coping mechanisms. And when paired with the lifestyle factors, which I have shown earlier, um, it creates a cycle that undermines not only an immediate well-being, but also long-term health outcomes. It becomes harder to manage stress and find meaning in daily life, which, of course, inhibits their successful aging. And there's an and if we go to a little bit outer layer, interpersonal layer, one of the most painful pattern is this: high expectations but low support. Many young adults feel emotionally isolated despite being surrounded by peers. So it's because, so for example, according to the Child Welfare Survey, primary school students study nearly 7 hours a day and spend less than 1 hour on leisure. This statistics doesn't just describe a schedule, it reflects a culture where rest is undervalued and connection is deprioritized. So many young people report a lack of close relationships, difficulty expressing emotional needs, and even discomforting turning to family. So, in that sense, loneliness in Korea is not about being alone. It's more about being expected to perform without space for vulnerability. Um, so let's move to the structural level. Um, Actually, it was very hard to make these slides. Um, we see national patterns that are difficult to ignore and even harder to change. South Korea is one of the most overworked countries in the world. So in 2021, Koreans worked nearly 200 hours more than OECD average. And among working women, the structural barriers are more even pronounced. Glass ceiling index, so South Korea ranks lowest among the OECD countries again. And it seems like gender equality in the workplace, including wage equity, leadership representation, and child care support, is not very equal between genders. So these numbers are not just labor issues, they're health issues. Um, and we also, I think you might have heard about this. On the left, you can see Korea's teen suicide rates. It's not only about teens. Suicide is now the leading cause of death for Koreans under 40. And we can also see that Korea also has the lowest fertility rate in the OECD, currently only 0.78 children per woman. Taken together, these indicators reflect a system where young people are opting out emotionally, socially, and also biologically. Not because they don't value life, but because they don't see some systems that support it. So, under these layered circumstances, um, I can say that the prospect of successful aging feels uncertain, if not increasingly out of reach. In today's presentation, I want to focus on one specific area where we can make difference: public health communication. Using the case of e-cigarette use among young adults, I'll highlight how the way we communicate health information can shape behaviors and beliefs. To begin, let me briefly outline the background. In South Korea, traditional cigarette use is declining, but actually e-cigarette use is rising, especially among young adults. So this shift raises a major public health concerns, as e-cigarettes still carry health risks and are often marketed as harmless or modern alternatives. For this study, you can see on the right side, we focused on how young adults experience health information about e-cigarettes. So health risk information or advertising information, how much they were exposed to those kind of information and how they perceived that information. Was it credible? Was it understandable? So these kind of points would be predictors of whether they intend to initiate e-cigarette use. We conducted a cross-national survey in Korea and China thanks to the support of Dr. Yang. In Korea, we applied quota sampling based on region, age, and sex, and in China, multi-stage cluster sampling was used. For this analysis, we focused on non-current users to examine intention to initiate e-cigarette use. So we can see final analytic sample included 443 Korean and almost 2,000 Chinese participants. So here's the findings. On the left, you can see e-cigarette use rates. Among Korean participants, nearly 12% were current users, and 16% were previous users, much higher than China. And initiation intention was also different. Among Korean participants, about 22%, 33% had even at least a small intention for smoking, initiating e-cigarette use, while only 22% among Chinese participants were openness or has shown openness for initiating e-cigarette use. And this slide shows how often participants reported exposure to health information or advertising about e-cigarettes in the past month. So there's a quite difference in here. So on the left, in case of health effect information, in Korea, 73% of participants said that they had never seen or heard any such information in the past month, which is quite different from 34% in China. And on the right, we see exposure to advertising, while majority Koreans again reported no recent exposure. More than half of Chinese participants have seen e-cigarette advertisements at least once in the last month. So China appears to be a higher exposure environment, and there's quite a difference between these two countries. Now we'll explore that further as we look at perceived credibility and understandability. Here we turn from exposure to perception. Participants found health effect information. In Korea, over half of the respondents said that only somewhat trusted the information they see. In contrast, Chinese were much more likely to say that the health information was credible and clear. The same goes for understandability. Korean participants often described it was difficult to understand, while Chinese respondents more often found it easy to understand. These perception differences help explain what we see in the behavior intention. So what predicts e-cigarette initiation intention? This regression model, logistic regression model, tells us what predicts young adults' intention to try e-cigarettes. In China, on the left, the strongest and significant protective factor was finding health effect information credible. So like credibility mattered in this in their intention to initiate e-cigarette use. But in Korea, exposure to that same information, exposure to effect on health information mattered. It was associated with higher intention to try. This suggests that simply seeing health messages isn't enough. The messages are, if those messages are ambiguous, confusing, or not trusted, they may have different effects on their intention. To summarize the core finding, health communication matters, but it matters differently depending on the context. So as mentioned earlier, young Koreans, they are much less exposed to health information related to e-cigarettes, but their exposure level quite affected their intention, and it was like 4 times more likely to report intention to try e-cigarettes, even with very small exposure. And among the young Chinese who perceived e-cigarette health information highly credible were 48% less likely to report initiation intention. So I think this is a very good example, which shows that exposure of information and also the perception about the information can shape of their health life choices or risk behaviors. Before we wrap up the empirical section, I'd like to briefly share a related study I led. This study focused on parental acceptance of COVID-19 vaccination for children in South Korea. And actually, I found that the finding was very striking. The parents who perceived the information as credible and sufficient were much more likely to accept their child's vaccination against COVID-19. Like if you can I know the figures are not very large, but anyway, who found the information credible had an odds ratio over 7. It's a very strong association. So even in a very different context of vaccination, the story is similar. When people trust the information, they're more likely to take meaningful health action. So what are the implications of this study? One challenge that emerged throughout this study is the conflicting nature of health messages. As as you can remember, the exposure of health effect on of e-cigarette use was actually heightened the intention of using e-cigarettes. So at first, what I expected was like if people are exposed to health risk information more, I thought that that would lead to lower intention, but actually it was the opposite. So I have been thinking why this is happening, and my explanation is like this. There's a conflicting nature of health messages in here. So on one side, on the left, you can see how e-cigarettes can be framed as effective cessation aid. For example, actually, particularly in places like United Kingdom, they took e-cigarettes as harm reduction approach, and they're actually promoting as a smoking cessation option. But on the other side, on the right side, countries like US and Korea emphasize the risks, positioning e-cigarettes as just as dangerous as traditional cigarettes. So these are just mixed messages. They reflect policy differences, institutional priorities, and audience targeting. But for young people navigating these environments, this confusion can sometimes lead to disengagement. Um, so the more clarity or more aligned health message delivery is needed in this context. And
I'm sorry
this
to
leads.
interrupt, Min Chung. You have a little bit over time, please.
Okay, sorry. It's almost, yeah, it's almost, I have only 2 slides left. Sorry. So this leads to one of our clearest takeaways. Health information must be also understandable. This is kind of approach called plain language summary. So it makes scientific concepts really understandable for general population, which has no scientific backgrounds. So this kind of approach providing this kind of plain language summary could help people understand health information more easier. And also, I want to put strength on person-centered approach. As we saw in this study, the context between China and Korea was quite different. So we cannot use like one size fits all approach. We have to consider the context, and also if we get in a little bit more specific, we also have to understand how the subpopulation differences in how they communicate health information. So yeah, so I started this presentation by asking whether young adults are ready for successful aging, but maybe we've been asking the wrong question. It's not just about whether young people are ready. It's also about whether the systems around them are ready to support them. And what I'm emphasizing in this presentation is that there's not one solution to solve this very complicated and multi-layered problem in South Korea among young adults. But however, health communication can be one solution. And yeah, the like clear communication messages that we can trust and system that listens before it speaks. Um, these takeaway messages is for how to communicate better with humility, clarity, and respect for their experience. Thank you for your attention. Sorry for the long presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. It's a very interesting study, especially when we see the large contrast between nations for the effect size. We'll come back for more discussions. So next speaker is Dr. Fan Hao Ni. Dr. Fan Hao Ni is an assistant professor at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, where he is also a faculty member at the Center for Asian American Studies. Before this position, he was also an associate professor at the Valdosta State University in Georgia. He uses quantitative methods to study health at the intersection of race and religion, with a particular focus on the U.S. Asian population. His research appeared in leading journals including Social Currents, a Journal for the Scientific Study of Religion, Deviant Behaviors, and more. Welcome, Dr. Dr. Ni. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Yang, for the introduction and for having us. Hello, everybody. Today, my topic is health at the intersection of race and religion, a quantitative approach. So, my presentation is composed of three parts. The first one is a brief introduction to my research agenda, my research interest, followed by an example research from one of my recent publications. And based upon how much time we may have toward the end of my presentation, I may talk about my research plan on it. So let me first jump into the introduction to my research interest. So when it comes to my research, my main outcome variable comes from the sociology of health and illness. I examine mental health such as depression, anxiety, and stress, physical health such as body mass index, as well as substance abuse behavior such as smoking and drinking. However, my main independent variables comes from the sociology of race and ethnicity and the sociology of religion. So I would like to study the social dimensions and determinants of health from the racial and religious standpoint. So specifically, I want to look into how individual health outcomes may reflect the individual religious or non-religious beliefs or behaviors, as well as their racialization experiences in the whole society. And since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, Asians and Asian Americans have been confronted with a rising wave of hate crimes against their community. And because of these unique challenges confronting Asian American communities, I would like to bring this research angle into the Asian American population. So today I will be using a recent publication to look into how race and religion may either independently or interactively affect important health outcomes among the Asian American community in the US. So the example research is several among us were insiders, exploring the relationship between internalized racism and suicidal ideation among US Asian adults. So the topic in some ways also echoing what Dr. Lee said earlier about the suicide, particularly suicide rates among the young adult population with Asian or Asian American heritage. Okay. So first of all, some brief introduction and a literature review of this subfield. So according to a Pew Research study results, since the summer of 2020 or since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, 58% of Asian Americans perceived an increase in racist views against them. And also during the pandemic, there was a 38% jump in anti-Asian hate crimes reported across all parts of the US. And with this kind of background, mental health crisis is also rising among the Asian American community in the US. According to the CDC, uh, Asian American young adults are the only racial group whose leading cause of death is suicide. And because of the cultural stigma and structural barriers, Asian Americans are also less likely to seek mental health treatment and prevention methods against suicide. Compared to non-Hispanic whites, Asian Americans are 60% less likely to seek mental health treatment for their mental illness problems. And therefore, I look into the theoretical background to explore the potential link between the racial challenges during the pandemic and the possible mental health influence, which may be exemplified by rising suicidal ideations or suicide risk. In the sociology of health and illness, there is a famous theory called the minority stress theory. The minority stress theory employed a social causation hypothesis, arguing that minority experiences, including racism, may be a very important stressor leading to adverse health outcomes among the minority individuals. And the minority stress theory is composed of two important components. The first one is physical stressors, such as perceived or experienced practices or discrimination based upon race, gender, sexuality, and many other very easily stigmatized social identities. A byproduct of the physical stressor is the proximal stressors, or the vigilance or anxiety about potential prejudice or discrimination, as well as one's own negative feelings against their own minority identity. So prior research on racism and suicide tends to measure racism as a physical stressor or perceived outside prejudice or discrimination. However, racism could also be internalized, can also be proximal, could also function as a proximal stressors. Minority individuals may also internalize the racial oppression from the majority, from the dominant social group. But proximal stressors or internalized racism has received much less attention for the study of racism and mental health among Asian Americans. And another important issue, or another very important understudied subfield, is that religion tends to be ignored in the study of race and mental health among Asian Americans. But as a racial minority group and also as a rising immigrant group, religion may play a very important social roles with the new immigrant community, the racial minority community, and religion may also intersect with their racial identity as well. And especially for Asian Americans, the majority of them are not Christian. So their Eastern minority religious status may become another added stigma on top of their racial identity in the US society. So therefore, the second area that needs more research attention is how religion may also influence the impact of racism upon mental health. Prior literature has suggested that religion may be a double-edged sword. It may protect mental health during adversity, such as providing a sense of divine assurance or community to turn to. But also in the meantime, religion may produce harm against mental health because it may produce interpersonal conflict in the congregation. It may also lead to doubts or questioning of the higher power, leading to higher stress and anxiety. So in my research, I'll be looking into both possible scenarios. And my research is also different, also distinguishes from the other studies because my sample will be exclusively Asian to Asian American in the US, while prior studies on religion, racism, and mental health tend to be based primarily upon white Christian samples. But Asian Americans are largely non-Christian, And also they come from a very different cultural background, emphasizing collectivism, respect for hierarchy, and dependence on social relationships. So those cultural traits may also lead to somehow counterintuitive findings for the links between religion and mental health, and also in the context of racism. So with those information in mind, I received funding from my university, UMass Lowell, and I collected data from April 2024 to June 2024, which is roughly a year ago on Qualtrics. And Qualtrics has an online panel sample with respondents recruited from different means, different panels, such as social media, member referral, or gaming website, and so on. So the panel members must be self-identified as Asian, at least 18 years old, and resided in the US during the time of the survey. They also must pass some kind of quality checks, such as attention checks. They also need to answer certain number of questions correctly in order to be retained in the survey. So overall, over 900 complete survey responses were collected, and also Qualtrics set quotas on gender, ethnicity, immigration status, and religious affiliation to approximate the sample to the general US Asian population to make the sample more representative. And in my study, the main dependent variable, as I mentioned earlier, is suicidal ideation. So I use the suicidal ideation attribute scale, or SIDAS. It looks into the frequency, severity, and controllability of suicidal ideation, 5 items. I'm focused on the first one, which asked in the past months, how often have you considered suicide? And the respondents may answer from a point of 0 to 10, 0 meaning never, 10 meaning always. To make analysis more easy, I recoded the dependent variable into a binary situation with 0 equals never had any suicidal ideation in the past months, and 1 equals otherwise. So overall, 27% of my survey participants reported suicidal ideation during the past months. For my independent variable, I look into the internalized racism in Asian American scale. It includes 14 items. The first 4 items look into self-negativity, such as I sometimes wish I weren't Asian, it's unfair that I was born Asian, or my feelings toward other Asians tend to be negative. While the next 6 items look into the physical weakness stereotype, with statements such as Asian men are more feminine than non-Asian men, or Asian men can't satisfy their sexual partners, and so on. The last 4 items talks about the physical appearance stereotypes, such as saying Asians are less physically attractive than white Americans, or lighter skin tone is more attractive than darker skin tone. And then I use the factor analysis to retain two subscales with over 1 eigenvalue. So there are 2 subscales, one measuring self-negativity, the other measuring the extent to which Asian Americans have internalized the weakness stereotype and appearance bias against them. In my multivariate analyses, I also control for important control variables, such as perceived blatant and subtle racism, or the kind of more distal perceived outside racism on top of the internalized racism, which we talked about earlier. I also control for religiosity, such as the frequency of service attendance at a congregation, importance of religion in life, physical health, generalized anxiety, using the generalized anxiety disorder 7-item scale, loneliness, frequency of drinking and smoking, and other important demographic variables such as gender, ethnicity, immigration status, or region of residence in the US. So here are the key results of my logistic regression. So in model 1, I control for all control variables, but here due to the space issue, I only show the most important outcome from the key independent variable. So as we can tell, internalized racism, especially internalized bias and stereotype, has a positive, significant impact on suicidal ideation. Asian Americans who internalize bias or stereotypes against themselves would be more likely to consider suicide in the past months. And interestingly, the effect size of internalized bias and stereotype is larger than the perceived external racism, such as the perceived blatant racism. In model two, I looked into in what way religion and racism may interactively impact the outcome variable suicidal ideation. So in model two, I included some interaction terms between internalized racism and related service attendance frequency. So in model two, I examined the interaction effect, which shows non-significant results between internalized self-negativity and frequency of related service attendance. But in model three, we can tell that there is a statistically significant interaction between race and religion. Here, internalized bias and stereotype is significantly interacting with related service attendance in terms of impacting suicidal ideation among Asian Americans. And to help you better understand the significant interaction effect, I visualized the interactive effect using predicted probabilities. So here in the X direction is the level to which, extent to which Asians have internalized racial bias and stereotypes against Asians. In the Y direction is the predicted probability of suicidal ideation. And the three lines represent different levels of church attendance frequency, ranging from the lowest level never in blue to the highest level more than weekly in green. And the red one, many times a year, is the mean or average level of church service attendance frequency among Asian Americans. So as we can tell, the negative effect of internalized racism or actually the positive association between internalized bias and stereotypes against suicidal ideation seems to be stronger, more salient among those who are more religious, or particularly among Asian Americans who attend related services weekly or more. So what may explain this counterintuitive finding? Because sociologists like Amir Durkin argue that being frequently involved in a religious group may protect people from suicide or mental health problems through social integration. There are two possible scenarios. For example, Asian Americans who attend Asian majority churches or religious organizations may be exposed to traditional Asian cultural values on the shame or stigma surrounding mental health. So their frequent experience or exposure to the religious organization may further intensify their acceptance of the stigma surrounding mental health, preventing them seeking health treatment or prevention to treat their mental health problems. Or to Asian
Thank you. Maybe
Americans who
also want to
attend,
speak up a bit.
yeah, and to Asian Americans who attend Asian minority groups, the racial differences and inequalities between Asians and whites may likely amplify, worsen the uh, the internalized racism or mental health consequences for Asian Americans. So, based upon this line of research, I have some research plan for the future. First of all, I would like to explore different aspects of anti-Asian racism, not just internalized Asian racism, but also gendered racism or model minority myths. I'd like to see how gendered racism or model minority myths may also play a role in mental health or physical health outcomes among Asian Americans, particularly the emasculation of Asian men or the hypersexualization of Asian women. In addition to depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation, I would also like to look into the positive psychology or the positive outcomes of Asian Americans in their mental health assessment, such as resilience or self-efficacy or optimism. And this line of research will broaden the discourse of Asian American health beyond pathology, beyond the problem-focused line of research. So that's all for my presentation for the show of my recent research and my future research agenda. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, Dr. Nie. I believe all the audience have many questions for your study. It's very intriguing and interesting results, something we part of the findings, I guess a lot of common sense didn't expect to see, is particularly about the religious attendance. Thank you for the interesting findings. Our next speaker is Dr. Nirachun Chutipatana. She is an associate professor in the School of Public Health at Wellalaika University in southern Thailand. Her study has been funded by internal and external grants, including by the National Research Council of Thailand and the Ministry of Public Health of Thailand. Dr. Chu is doing survey and studying substance use behavior among teenagers. Next, let's welcome Dr. Chu to present her study on a self-efficacy program for e-cigarette prevention and mental health development. Please attend to the time. We have around 15 minutes. So if you use up all the time, I wouldn't have anything to say to remain for myself. Okay. Dr. Chu, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Yang, that organized this event. And for my topic, may be different from Fan Hao and Min Jung, because they have done already. But for this project, is a project for future grant proposal. My topic is Smart Talk for Bright Minds, a self-efficacy program for e-cigarette prevention and mental health development. Okay. I will present the study's rational literature review and methodology. Evidence shows that e-cigarette use among adolescents in high in many countries. In Thailand, 43% of upper primary students and 31% of grade 4 students in Nakhon Si Thammarat have tried e-cigarettes. And curiosity, around 60% is the main reason, with most obtaining them from friends or family. E-cigarettes harm health, causing lung injury, mental and behavioral problems, secondhand exposure, academic decline, and higher healthcare costs. E-cigarette use is linked to anxiety and depression in adolescents. Around 14% of youth face untreated mental health issues. Key factors are individual health, family, and school support and community safety. This study targets 10-year-olds by using self-efficacy theory to build refusal skills and emotional control with yoga included. It involves a multi-sectoral team. For example, students, teachers, parents, and village health volunteers. That I abbreviation in VHVs. And focus on a long-term behavioral change through skill development. E-cigarette use cost 60,000 baht per user per year, around $2,000. Early prevention could save 60 million Thai baht annually by prevent 1,000 children from starting. Research objectives. First, I want to compare the behavior of e-cigarette use among students between the experimental group and the control group before and after the intervention. Second, to compare the level of self-efficacy in refusing e-cigarettes among students between the experimental group and the control group before and after the intervention. Third, to compare the level of mental health among students between the experiment group and the control group before and after intervention. The program aims to prevent e-cigarette use in primary school, improve students' resilience and mental health, support school with preventive measures, and reduce long-term healthcare costs. Based on literature review, self-efficacy theory based on Bandura suggests that self-efficacy is the belief in one's ability to achieve goals. Its four sources are past success, observing others, encourage from others, and emotional and physical condition affect confidence. Coloring activity boosts emotional and social skill and builds self-confidence and emotional regulation and encourage self-expression, helping children strengthen self-efficacy and coping skills. Yoga is an ancient practice from India that integrates the mind, body, and spirit through various techniques. Like, for example, tree pose, the children will enjoy because they can competing to balance on one leg. This is my conceptual framework. Independent variable is the program. The Smart Talk for Bright Mind program involves group discussion, instructional media, and 4 weeks of empowerment activities, followed by post-program evaluation at week 4, 8, and 12. The program aims to influence preventive behaviors against e-cigarette use, including behavioral self-efficacy in refusal and mental health. For methodology, a quasi-experimental study with 100 grade for students in Nakhon Si Thammarat is 50 in the experimental group and 50 in the control group. We had a 1 month intervention with 1 pre-test and 3 post-tests. We will conduct a 4-week activity program with each week designed based on the 4 components of self-efficacy. For example, in week 1, students will draw their brave mountain to reflect courageous moment, mastery experience or ME, abbreviation in ME. This refers to mastery experience, and share story with friends in VE, and receive praise from adult verbal persuasion that we call VP, and practice the 3 pose with breathing techniques. These are emotional and physiological state that is EA. And for key participants, we have a student engaged in activity and teacher facilitate and parents support at home, and village health volunteer exist with press, poster, sticker, and relaxation guides. And its duration around 60 minutes per week. For this slide, in each week, activities are designed based on the 4 components of self-efficacy, with a focus on using coloring to practice refusal skill against e-cigarette. For example, for week one step, the teacher will explains that the mountain of courage represents standing firm, such as a refusal e-cigarettes. And second, students draw their imaging mountain with symbol of bravery. For example, a character climbing the mountain. And third, they write a sentence about a real life moment when they were brave. For example, in this picture um, that I show, I will extend it. For example, the student can write a bravery. Once gave a presentation to the whole class. This for example. And the last step, teachers and parents provide positive reinforcement and praise. And also village health volunteer go to visit home and uh, support and give a sticker and ask something that like the student will take uh, uh, a paper or a paper that the children drawing at home, and village volunteer can give a sticker like this when village volunteer visit home. And next, this is my instrument that we would divide in 4 sections. First, in personal information, and section two. In section 2 is e-cigarette use behavior. For example, we can ask, have you used an e-cigarette in the past 30 years? And student can say yes or no. And section 3, self-efficacy in refusing e-cigarettes. And section 4, mental health, like this. And this is a show research instrument quality and program quality, and uh, data collection that we preparation for example, for ethic approval like this, and pre-test, and we have training. I will training the teacher like train for yoga and breathing, and train health volunteer for home visit, and this program for weekly. And we have protest, quality check, and data analysis that will use a two-way mix ANOVA. Yes, thank you. These are my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Chu. Hey, this is very interesting and practical research project. We all talk about theories, but usually we don't put our theories into practice, and we have no idea how to improve the problems we identified by our study. Unfortunately, we also have clinician practice-oriented researchers like yourself. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, the last presentation, um, I am my name is Xiaozhao Yusuf Yang. I'm an associate professor at Sun Yat-sen University, and previously I also worked at Murray State University in Kentucky, and I was a visiting scholar. Planned to at Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health, although it was unexecuted due to unforeseen reasons. Um, COVID, actually. My primary research interest is how health inequalities emerge as a result of a community dissolution in contemporary societies. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint here. Okay, get this up. Okay, my topic today is youth mental health and what's new. So this is not a empirical study. This is a more broad discussion. I wish to elicit some reactions and something we can talk about in future, setting a research agenda for myself. So we all know Gen Z, the people who born after 1995, they are seeing a rise of a mental illness. The anxiety disorders, for example, they doubled since 2008. Between 2008 and 2021, we see the depression among girls aged 12 to 17 up 145%. This is the figure by the CDC. In China, from 1990 to 2021, the age standardized prevalence of any mental illness has increased by 4.8%. The number, however, of mental disorder cases decreased by 21.9%. So there's a lot more international variations between contexts and the countries. But the general narrative in the public and also by the government, as we can see from the type of the grant they're soliciting, the type of money they're sending to for research, these days are concentrated. A very major shift is they started paying attention to mental health and the stress issue among adolescents. Uh, but mental health and the stress issues among adolescents is not anything new. This is a age of onset of any mental disorder. This is a meta-analysis. We can clearly see there's a trend for mental disorders or illness to appear at around age 14. That's the high age before adolescence. Well, that's part of the peak adolescence, and that's the high age of before the adolescence sets in. A similar pattern, we call that in criminology the age crime curve. Very similar. Crime rates starts to rise at age around 15 and 20 to 25 something. So after 25, there's a rapid decline. Uh, so basically between 15 and 25, uh, the increase is very rapid. This is nothing new. Although there's time difference, there's cohort difference, like between the cohort of 1994 and the cohort 2018, you do have this variation between them, large gap in arrest rate per 100,000 population. But we generally still detect a pattern, a rapid increase during adolescence. So facing this issue, like talked before, whether public health scientists, policymakers, government officials, sociologists, people from different disciplines in social sciences, particularly psychologists, who are paying attention to the issue of mental illness and mental disorders, and generally the stress issues among adolescents. A main theme these days, as we can see from literature review, from news medias, is the attack on technology, the attack on the rising of social media, AI, and digitalized the platform. That may have increased stress level, but I call that the Luddite attack. I don't have much empirical evidence on this yet, but theoretically, there are few issues with the so-called Luddite attack on tech. The Luddites, as we know, during late 19th century, are a group of workers and social practice the policy advocates who blame the machines for the deteriorating working condition of the proletariats. Just like Luddites of the 19th century, many had blamed social media, AI, but none of the above new media are qualitatively new. Think about the past generations. They had TV, they had newspaper, desktop computer, PC, movies. Those are all major corporates people in the past generation used to blame for the deteriorating health and social interaction issues among their own people, among their own children of their generation. So Candice Oscar, a psychologist, called the fallacy they call this a fallacy because no alternative explanations are available. Therefore, anything new must be responsible. However, the empirical evidence is weak. One study found social media did not predict depressive symptoms, but depression predicted social media use in the other direction. A meta-analysis of 33 separate studies showed no link between screen use time and mental disorders and suicidal ideations. Um, to be fair, there are also empirical studies proving social media use may have affected depression or anxiety disorders. but the conclusion is pretty ambiguous. The best we can say is empirical evidence is mixed. Sometimes empirical evidence in this regard is very weak. Based on the attack on media theory or hypothesis, naturally they would come up with a solution. Usually the attack on media solution is banning the social media, controlling the time people can use social media. But we all know how it ended well with prohibitionist policy on alcohol. We all know how the prohibitionist year ended. The second solution sometimes involve authoritarian surveillance and the social regulation, technological regulation on social media, on using computer or smartphone. But the problem is, the problem with this proposal is surveillance and regulation technology is not weak at all. It's very centralized. It's actually already very much regulated. The third solution is giving more responsibility to the parents. That sounds very familiar to all the youth problem issues we have seen in the past few generations, not only with the Gen Z, among millennials, among Gen X and the boomers. Whenever a social issue associated with adolescence emerged, the society switched their attention to the parents. Okay. So there's nothing qualitatively new here. What alternative explanation may be here? What I propose is I found through my study of surveying young adults and adolescents, um, the same survey that I collaborated with Minchong, but this one I'm presenting now is the sample from China. It's a number of stressors in our survey. As you can see, um, only about 40% of the population in our sample do not have any stressor, and over 30 to 40% of the people have more than two stressors. But when you look at what are the stressors? The most frequent stressors is injury and sick, being sick and being injured. The second most common is fail their exam or practices. The third most common is friendship issues. So you would naturally assume injury and sickness, something we as a psychologist call acute environmental stressor, would be responsible for stress, perceived stress, and mental health issues. But when we conduct this standardized test of their association between uh, all these roles, all the stressors, traumatic events, and the dependent variable, which is perceived stress. Sickness and injury, in terms of effect size, is very weak. The top five predictive stressor on stress level is actually family relationship issue. Failed their exam, friendship issues, lost a friend, or being bullied at school. So generally speaking, we can have an impression the most important stressors for adolescents and young adults are socially oriented. They came from their social world, social interaction, either with their friends or with their family, with failing exam being an exception. I'm proposing that communal life is a fundamental part of mental health. The prevailing definition of mental disorder in DSM-5, upon which DSM-5's definition was built, came from Jerome Wakefield's harmful dysfunction definition of a mental illness. It has two parts. The first part is dysfunction. Mental illness has to be a failure of an internal mechanism, could be cognitive, could be neurotic, to perform a function for which what it was developed by natural selection. And it also have to have the second part, being harmful. It has to present significant distress on one's occupational, social, and personal life. So from both perspective, you would see it a community and society comes into play. First, the dysfunction part. Um, okay, I'm gonna hurry up here. there has to be a mismatch between the current environment we're living in and the existing adaptations selected by the long-term evolution process our ancestors went through. A good communal life should not deviate too much from our ancestors. Otherwise, the current environment, either stressors or stimuli, will not get us adapted to the situation. The second part, social. A good community makes re-entry easy and preempts stigma. Okay. So in my opinion, I'm proposing what is a good community? A good community is a voluntary and organic community. Voluntary means it cannot be created upside down. Oops. Am I stuck here? Okay, I'm good. It cannot be created by a top-down administrative order. It has to be self-creating and reproducing. By organic, I mean it has to be a multifaceted, complex structure involving heterogeneous roles and status. It has both vertical and horizontal positions. Now think come to as we come to think about the social world of the Gen Z, their communal life is less organic and voluntary due to social and the political transformation we're experiencing in the current situation. Uh, in many countries across the world, there is an increasingly larger administrative body, namely the government. Public space is being heavily surveillance and regulated. There's erosion of dialects, organic language, faith or religion or any spiritual practices. There's an erosion of nation ethnic identities. Everyone's being wiped and smeared for their identity and put into this very simple, uh, automized system. Uh, and the second trend in terms of the economy, we're seeing a globalized neoliberal trade system in the past 3 decades at least, um, represented by the WHO, and similarly established multilateral trade system. It breaks down local industries and the trade union, destroys mom and pop and the small shops. The fast international movement of people and the capital also eradicated identities based on nation, ethnicity, and the local communities. A digital platform and economy, loss of a traditional stable job and the career paths. These are the social world this new generation Z is living in. So another study of ours, we find that participation itself is, if it's organized by a higher authority, instead of it being self-organized, it actually does not contribute to lower risk of the suicidal ideation. Among all types of a social capital, is the only one that increases suicidal ideation. This was a 2019 study published in Social Science and Medicine. So I'm proposing this future agenda that we pay more attention to the role of a community, particularly a organic and voluntary community. Um, I also would like to study how the decline of community affect the self meaning. How do we define ourselves? Um, another future research plan is how do we measure community? Traditionally, we measure by social capital, but is that enough? How do we measure participation in voluntary communal life instead of organized community activities by bureaucracy, administrative orders, and such? Um, and how do we compare self-organized communities versus bureaucratic organizations? Okay. So these are my, this is very broad and perhaps a little vague research agenda with some empirical support. So that wraps up uh, my my presentation. Okay, gonna stop share here. Okay, we stay roughly within our time limit. So next, I want to bring up a few questions based on the commonality of our research. So I want to throw this question out there. What particular issues or challenges are facing the young people in the population you study? It could be the country context that you came from or you're based in. It could be the study sample population you're conducting research about. Is there anything you want to talk about? This is very general, no specific guidelines or whatnot. Anything you guys want to share about? And also the audience, if you want to join the conversation, because you're automatically muted, so you can raise your hand and we will unmute you if you want to join the conversation.
Now I noticed that I have a college from Walalak University. First, first associate professor Dr. Charowai Suwan Bamrung, that she's chairman of graduate study of School of Public Health, and the second is associate professor Chamnong Thanapop from Walalak
Mhm.
University. Please, Chan Charowai, do you have any question or want to say something to participate in this event?
Yes, anyone can join the
Um,
conversation.
yeah. Good evening in Thailand, like a time of the evening, and nice to meet you all for the nice presentation. I think it's a good opportunity for me and my colleagues to like develop the proposal or maybe make the research. But for my program, like a PhD program, I have many students, like a PhD student and master student. Sometimes if the student have interesting of the topic like mental health and maybe something to consult you are all, I would like to invite you to join the PHR program and maybe the School of Public Health, like EC for PHR, like an excellent center for the public health program. uh, no. EC for PHR is mean public health research. Yeah, I think today is a good luck for me to join with listen or miss you meet you all. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Nirachon, to invite me, and nice to meet you all. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, welcome. Welcome, Dr. Churai. I'm sure I messed up this name. Welcome to join our conversation because we are all students and scholars about health and sociology, generally social science. So I was wondering, we don't know specific details and the culture and the social currents in each country. Would anyone of you from maybe from Thailand want to share how is there any specific challenge or something related to mental health issues facing the students or adolescents or young adults in your country?
Okay. Uh, the own expertise of my study is related to the communicable disease is a dengue problem or COVID-19. But now I have the one project interesting with the mental health of the longevity, like longevity, quality of longevity. It's mean like aging in situation of Thailand for the mental health. Sometimes like people don't explain. I mean like the mental health problem is look like the new problem of the people in southern Thailand. In my experience, the mental health is not the common problem. Sometimes the people keep the problem.
Mhm.
Don't explain to another one. It's difficult to solve in my idea. I think in the future mental health problem needs to explore and make the solution in the in the longevity, because in my research proposal I'm interesting of the people who are more than 100 years. Is like longevity. If the if they need to the quality of longevity, it's mean to the mental health problem, like the point, the big issue to solve to solve
Hmm.
and explore. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I mean, no offense, but by stereotype, we often assume that a Buddhist country like Thailand, people are very peaceful. They don't suffer from much stressor, and lifestyle is very slow. But I happen to stumble upon some literature. That's why intersection of race, gender is very important. I read about there are actually lots of marginal communities in Thailand, like the Hmong people, Karen people. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, who are not part of the mainstream, uh, part of mainstream religious or social society in there, and there could be military conflict and daily material deprivation facing this population. So I think it's very interesting to look beyond stereotype and general impression. There are actually very important interethnic and intra-ethnic issues related to mental health. Anyone from the you guys based in the US want to talk about anything? And is there anything new that since it's been so long since I've been in the States, is there anything new about race and ethnicity or gender has to do with mental health? Any emerging topics?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here. I feel like in the United States, there's definitely a strong intersection between race and gender because the US society has certain kind of stereotypes, cultural assumptions, not just based upon your racial identity, but also how you do your gender based upon your racial identity. For example, the emasculation of Asian men. Asian men are tend to be stereotyped as feminine or hypersexualization of Asian women who tend to be stereotyped as very obedient and submissive. So for young adults from Asian American background, this intersection between race and gender may produce like doubled burden on their mental health outcomes. And I think for future research, if there's any international collaborations, it would be interesting to explore how young adults how young Asian American adults here in the United States may perceive mental health problems, may seek mental health treatment in a different way compared to their peers from their home country, where they don't have this kind of minority stressors because of their skin color, because of their gender identity associated with their skin tone or their racial identity. And from today's conversation and presentation, I can definitely see some potential international collaboration and comparative analyses between young adults from the US and their peers in China, South Korea, Thailand, or some other home countries in Asia.
Hmm. Your finding religious attendance and race is very interesting. I was wondering, this is a very open-ended question. I don't know anything about the topic. I'm an outsider to your subfield. I'm ignorant in this subject. But if we have a counterfactual world, because we have these Asian Americans as minority in the States, if we suddenly magically move them to a country where they are majority, how would the religious attendance work in terms of the mental health outcomes, suicidal ideation? I was just wondering that intrigues me.
Yeah, I don't think there's a black versus white answer here. There are going to be so many gray areas, so many shades of gray, depending on the structural context, the interpersonal relationship. Just like what Dr. Lee said in her presentation, there's three layers or there's three bubbles, one outside of the other. So what is so my finding based upon the sample here in the United States definitely will not apply towards another sample based in South Korea or China or Thailand because of the the shifting environment or the majority versus minority status change. So I think the best way moving forward is, in addition to conducting survey research, we may also do more qualitative research, doing in-depth interviews or ethnographic observations to understand the subjective social psychological processes among the young adults, how they actually perceive, how they actually interpret the shifting environment between here in the United States versus back in their home country. Yeah, but that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great answer too. We don't have a clear-cut white and black situation in social science. That's why we resort to empirical data.
Nice.
Minchun, you want to jump in? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, I actually think that comparing the immigrants or I don't know, like Asian Americans and Asians in their countries, comparing those two groups would be really interesting. As so I'm Korean, but also American, and it has been only 2 years since I came back to the US. And myself, I'll always questioned, am I Korean American or American Korean? I have a lot of
Mhm.
questions about as you know as Asian American. And but I have one question. I think that there could be some difference whether they are themselves are immigrants or second generation or third generation immigrants. So that was one thing. Because me myself in here, I can quite easily distinguish between first, second, third generation Asians in here. So yeah, I think it's very interesting study.
By evidence or by personal experience, do you think it's better? Which generation gets it better, gets it easier? The first, second, or they all have their own problem, I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Wouldn't it be the immigrants themselves who are, I don't I fresh off the boat. Maybe I think they struggle most uh worsened mental health, I think so.
Hmm. Okay, we have a question in the dialogue chat box. Um, Generative AI is becoming more and more integrated to the lives of young people with tools like ChatGPT facilitating real-time human-like conversation in China. Many young people are using it as digital companion, romantic companion, girlfriend and boyfriends, digital. How will that generative AI impact the mental health of a younger generation? Do our speakers have an answer to that question? It's quite interesting, a fashionable question too. Yeah, I actually put that on my agenda. It was one of the questions I was going to ask. I don't know. It's interesting.
Um, so well, I don't I'm trying not to open myself too much personally, but when you don't have a lot of people to talk with, actually I use ChatGPT. Oh, I feel I feel bad. But anyway, I use ChatGPT quite often. So I didn't have a lot of social ties in here. And for example, my daughter asked me to bring whether she can bring her friend for a sleepover, and I didn't know how Americans organize that kind of sleepover among these kids. So I asked ChatGPT how to organize a sleepover for 8-year-old girls, and it gave me a great answer, like what I have to prepare and what to communicate with the kids' parents and everything. And yeah, I also see a lot of social media posts that introducing how to use ChatGPT or other these kind of AIs to for personal psych therapist. So there are some kind of a lot of people are talking about those prompts, how to you make your ChatGPT your personal therapist. So I think not they just don't open it, but I think a lot of people are using it very, um, for their mental health these days.
Well, my connection is a little slow here. Is that me or
It could be me.
okay, okay. I'm good now. Yeah, I feel like I don't know the answer because I'm very suspicious of like I said, the Luddites' attack on technology. I have a very neutral stance towards technology. I'm a sociologist. I've always been trained as one. So I always think the social organization is more important than technology. I want to be more cautious and wary of conclusion without empirical evidence, because in the past generation we have tools, technological tools performing similar function, although not as fancy, similar function as AI. The kids in the past generations, they have TV in the 70s, 80s, 60s after the World War II, and the parents suddenly become worried about TV. It also obviously has benefits, but also have its drawback, the dark sides. But then we all live through the TV age. It feels like nothing now. Um, So that's my position on that issues. I'm neutral. Anyone to join? I have another questions. I have another question about because we're living in a political and economic upheaval time. Does that affect us as researcher, even though we may not be adolescents anymore? What aspects of these, changing political situation or economic situation affected us? Or maybe you're unaffected. That's better. Anyone want to share something specific about your context? Okay. Does anyone in our audience have more questions? Okay. Here's a hand up. Yeah, can you unmute yourself?
So
Yes.
hi everyone. I have a question for Professor Yang. And as you have said, communal life is the production of social construction against being eliminated by natural selection process. So what if part of the young people's systematic supportive social resources to handle mental illness problem are inherited from their closely related ones. And I believe that is culturally independent and it won't change immediately.
You mean the mental illness or stress issue they inherited from their parents?
Yes, absolutely.
The inheritance is not 100%. We have the best evidence for schizophrenia that's inheritable. Uh, People try to quantify that. They try to say 70% of schizophrenia can be explained by genetic factors. But the studies themselves are family based. So in certain way, we can only say that 70% of the variants in schizophrenia are shared between family members. We don't know for sure how much genetic components are in there. As far as I know, you always have environmental and the social pressure built upon that genetic propensity to cause mental illness. And yeah, of course, if for the extreme example, some people just inherit very risky genetic components, and you can't change that. But far as I think, as a society, we can make it easier for them to re-entry, for rehabilitation, to reduce the stigma. So that in that aspect, even though remember the definition for mental disorder, you have the dysfunction, and the dysfunction has to be harmful, even though they have the dysfunction in some internal mechanism. If we make our society more friendly, more acceptable, accessible to these people, their disability will not be as harmful to their occupational life compared to if we don't provide them the access. Uh, I'm not sure. Is that your question? Did I answer your question?
Yes, but I have another question is that I was wondering about um, is there kind of a possibility that unhealthy um, social network, unhealthy social, let's say unhealthy social network will necessarily bring the of a result of their mental illness problem?
Will bring what? Will bring the worst result?
Yes, the worst outcome of their mental illness problem.
Yeah, I definitely think so. That they call that environmental gene interaction. If they already have high propensity for mental illness, then some environmental triggers make it worse. Yeah, I definitely think that will. So maybe that's where AI come into play. If you have very toxic friendship or toxic social circle, then you have at least you have AI to fall back on.
Yes, totally agree on that.
Thank you. That's a very interesting question and also a fashionable question. Anyone else? Anything our speakers want to share? Okay, we're half past 10, 10:30 now. So I'm gonna close this. I thank everyone. These are very interesting presentations. Some are thoroughly done research, some are agenda, uh, some are future projects. I I really learned a lot, and the rich discussion we had, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope we can maybe develop a joint work group. We can also collaborate on surveys, even the existing data. We can work on that together and write some papers. I thank everyone for joining me today, and hope you had a good talk. So that'll. Oh yeah, and also oh there's one message in chat box. Oh, that's from Professor Dr. Churai. Yeah, again, welcome all of you to our conversation. Okay. All right, well, I hope we stay in touch, guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yang, for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for some people, enjoy, have a good night. For some people, have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank you again.